So I've seen you've written a couple of different blogs, and Sarah had the main blog, but you've written about it as well. But kind of explain to those who didn't read the blog, what were the kind of the reasons behind the layoffs and the follower wonk and the Moz content stuff? So.
Yeah, so I guess this is starting a few years ago. We pursued this strategy of going from focused on SEO to a multi-product focus on broader inbound marketing. And, for those of you who might have been to MozCon the last few years or, have been reading the Moz blog, you can see that the content has been broadening out. It's not just SEO focused, although it continued to remain, I would say, SEO centric.
Right. Mm-hmm.
50% or more of the content is still pretty SEO focused. But, we released things like the Guide to Social Media and Guides to Content Marketing, and we've been getting into those worlds more. And that was intentional to support the growth of two new products. One was Follower Wonk, which we'd bought several years ago and spun out as its own product at the end of last year. And then the other one was Moz Content, which I think launched in maybe beta in December or January.
Mm-hmm.
So about 9-10 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, we also made the call to grow the company very fast. In fact, grow the company ahead of revenue by a considerable amount.
Oh, wow.
Hoping that adding these new people onto the team would help grow our ability to do work and make progress and grow revenue. And what ended up happening was that was not the case. I think that I think it probably would have been the case if it had more time, but the time constraints just ran into each other. So Follower Wonk was growing, continues to grow. Moz Content was growing. I think Wonk was on track for maybe 250, 300,000 revenue this year, and then hopefully would double next year and double the year after. And then you'd have kind of a business similar to what Moz was, right? When we started this thing. Same story with content. I think content was maybe on track for a couple 100,000 in revenue this year. And they both had teams of engineers and product people, designers, marketers, and we got to, I think it was maybe the board meeting in August. There was like an executive team offsite, which I had surgery, and so was only there for part of, but there was discussion about like, hey, here's the metrics behind these things, and here's kind of our budget, and what are we going to do about this?
Mm-hmm.
Then I got to the board meeting in August, and the call was, hey, we prepared this this layoff, I don't know what to call it, plan, and the board meeting was supposed to go 3 hours. It went 7 hours.
Wow.
We had a board member who changed, his flight back to New York so he could stay there for it. It was intense.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I would say, with the exception of maybe 2 conversations, it was also very, very collegial and productive, and people were being kind and friendly to each other. And then there were a couple ones where, mostly me, right? This is mostly me. I was a dick, right?
Right.
I totally can be. And then at the end of that, it was basically decided that we would do these layoffs for a few reasons. One of the biggest reasons was so that the company could focus again just on SEO, on Moz Pro, which is our largest product. It's probably 90% of our revenue. That's the SEO software suite.
Right.
And Moz Local, which has been growing fast and doing well. And that we would shut down the other products. And in addition to that, we would cut a small amount of staff from the rest of the company, maybe about not quite 10% from the rest of the company, in order to get to cash flow positive or profitable ASAP. And I think our chief financial officer said he's thinking that will still happen around November or December. So it was a crappy experience. I mean, I am friends and was friends with a lot of the people who got laid off, and Moz has never done layoffs before. I think it's like, in a lot of ways, it hurts your morale and your reputation, and it makes you. it's weird. Creating a company that gives people jobs does not create anywhere near the good feeling that letting people go from those jobs creates a bad feeling. Like that seesaw is completely out of whack, and those people, of course, right? Like same story. They feel 10 times worse when they lose their job than when they get a job.
Oh, absolutely. It's a sucky position to ever be in, and I mean, it's very surprising. And how long? I mean, Moz has been in existence in 2004. 12 years without having to do something like that. There's a bit of a kind of an irrational perspective that it would continue that way. I mean, in a particular manner, because there's a reality of business, and there are things that have to ebb and flow. No offense. I mean, from individuals that experience this, they can't just lambast Moz because it's a business. It has to be able to adjust and self-level and right itself in certain ways.
I think there's an interesting and obviously I didn't go to it from the extent that Rand did, but we had our own layoff in 2012, and I think it's why I'm so sensitive as a business owner to the climate out there about greedy corporations and greedy, and there's an aspect of a company that you have to make a profit so that you can withstand, tough times, and so that you can grow. You've got to be, and it's not greed. It's a matter of being responsible to your investors, responsible to yourself, responsible to everybody else. So, I think the majority of businesses could probably do with a layoff after a while. Yeah. Honestly, I've worked for a lot of companies. I've worked for a lot of companies that profits were. I worked for the newspaper industry, right? And
what is that
exactly? And profits were 40% when I was in the newspaper industry. Oh, wow. And so they got huge and they got slow, and and so when digital took over, did they move? No, they were too slow. They weren't hungry anymore. Right. So anyways, I never look at a layoff as a bad thing. I think it's just it's just a way to trim your fat. Yeah.
Well, so I would say Moz is in a little bit of a different position, right? Our industry is growing as fast or faster than it's ever grown.
Right.
But so is competition, though.
Yeah, and competition. Yeah. I think that's a great point, right? So, 4 or 5 years ago, I think you would have looked around the SEO software world, and Moz was the runaway leader.
Exactly.
Right? Totally clear leader. And then we really took our eye off the ball, right? We focused on, hey, let's try and do all these other things around inbound marketing, and maybe they'll all come together, and let's pursue this first multi-product in one product strategy, and then separate it out into multiple products, and in the meantime got our lunch eaten in a lot of ways by folks who I think are doing a terrific job, right? SEMrush and Ahrefs and Screaming Frog and
Cognitive's out there, and they're doing good.
Cognitive, what was it? SEO Clarity, Stat up in Vancouver is doing an awesome job.
Yeah.
Conductor and BrightEdge and Search Metrics on the enterprise side have all built very impressive businesses, and Moz has never played in the enterprise space at all. So, look, this is not the industry was going down and we had to recognize that and make some changes. I think this is a strategic choice that turned out to be a mistake, and that sucks, right? You gotta. I think you gotta own that. I think when you mess up, you better own it, especially when it costs people their jobs. And
you got that right.
I hope we're doing a good job of owning it and saying like, hey, we're sorry, we let you down. Yeah. We let you down in two ways. We let you, customers and SEO world, down by not focusing, and we're going to change that. And we let you down, people that we hired at Moz, by putting you onto projects and hiring ahead of revenue and investing in these things before we had kind of secured our home base. And made sure that we were great.
It's an interesting thing, just listening to you say those things, because there's definitely a tone to West Coast versus Midwest too, though, right?
Right.
You know, I mean, I would say everything that you said there in the Midwest, a lot of those things don't happen just because there's not deep pockets.
Mm-hmm.
There's not investors that are going to throw $10 million at your project or anything else. So you sound like you're really in pain when you talk about it, but out here it's the norm.
Yeah. Right.
You know,
certainly, I mean, the West Coast has been insulated from, I think, a lot of
exactly.
You know,
Come feel our pain.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a mindset of
there is.
of great risk and reward on the West Coast that, you know, when you're in a smaller market like in Indianapolis, you just don't have that. That's just not here. It's not here.
Well, and certainly this is a big difference between being venture backed and not venture backed. But if you're not venture backed, you cannot. It is totally unacceptable to go, hey, it's cool, we're burning $500,000 a month. But you know, it'll help us grow faster.
Right.
You just don't do that. That's effing crazy. If you are privately owned, you go, all right, how are we going to make sure we break even? And is it okay if we lose, you know, $10,000 this year? No, that is not okay. We need to be profitable. We need to be making money. That's the job of a business. So it is a totally different world. Even West Coast to Midwest or East Coast, certainly a difference. And then also venture backed to non-venture backed, big difference too.
Yeah. Yep.